Man kann dich nicht hören, Kai.
Jetzt habe ich noch ein leichtes Rückhall und dann können wir gleich starten mit einer Sekunde Verspätung noch. So, jetzt müsste man mich auch im Stream hören können. Wunderbar, dann können wir jetzt starten. Sorry für die Verspätung. Heute wieder eine neue Situation. Ich hoffe, das funktioniert jetzt alles so und alle können mich gut hören. Und ja, ich freue mich, dass wir heute wieder eine neue Sitzung haben, Disruptive Bildungsperspektiven. Heute mal mit einer, wieder mal neuen Situation, diesmal komplett online. Wir haben heute einen Gast aus Finnland, Marjo Kyllönen. Ich sage gleich noch ein bisschen mehr zu ihr. Genau, sie hat gerade schon ein bisschen gewunken. Leider gab es einige Probleme bei der Wiedereinreise nach Finnland. Also wäre Marjo jetzt heute tatsächlich nach Deutschland gekommen, dann hätte sie höchstwahrscheinlich erstmal nicht nach Finnland einreisen dürfen oder sie hätte 14 Tage Quarantäne machen müssen. Deswegen haben wir uns eben entschieden, heute die Session komplett online zu machen, was für uns jetzt in dieser Form auch in Ordnung ist. Wieder eine neue Situation, da stellt uns Corona immer wieder vor spannende Herausforderungen. Genau, aber ich denke, wir schaffen das auch. Auch heute wieder gibt es die Möglichkeit, sich zu beteiligen. Zum einen natürlich alle, die im Zoom-Gespräch sind, dürfen gerne nachher Fragen stellen. Marjo wird erst einen kleinen Vortrag halten und wird dann eben im Laufe der Zeit wird es die Möglichkeit geben, dass ihr hier auch Fragen stellen könnt. Ansonsten könnt ihr auch wieder auf die Internetseite disruptive-bildungsperspektiven.de gehen und dort eben auch euch den Stream angucken oder euch im YouTube-Chat beteiligen. Genau. Einziger Unterschied zu sonst ist heute ausnahmsweise, dass die Veranstaltung Abgleich auf Englisch stattfindet. Das heißt, also wir werden uns gleich auf Englisch unterhalten. Es wäre auch schön, also die Fragen in Zoom könnt ihr auf Englisch stellen. Ihr könnt aber auch, das würden wir euch gerne anbieten, wenn ihr nicht besonders gut Englisch sprecht, die Frage gerne auf Deutsch stellen und wir übersetzen die für euch. Also auch die Leute, die im Stream zugucken und die Frage schriftlich stellen. Genau, ihr könnt sie sehr gerne einfach auf Deutsch stellen und wir übersetzen sie dann auf Englisch. Auch heute haben wir wieder die Möglichkeit, dass Lea uns unterstützt. Ich sage mal Hallo Lea.
Hi.
Jetzt hörte man mich zwischendurch wieder im Stream nicht. Ich würde sagen, wir verlieren nicht noch mehr Zeit und starten einfach mit unserem Vortrag. So we now switch to English. And I'm very, very happy to welcome Marjo Kyllönen. Hello Marjo. Nice to see you. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kai.
Yes, so you're now in Helsinki, right?
I'm currently in Helsinki. Yeah, I live in Helsinki, and you can see the light, very bright light. So we are just in midsummer, and that means that we have the night, so the sun doesn't go down practically, and it's still very shiny and sunny, half cloudy. So it's almost 8:30 in Finland. So yes, greetings from Helsinki.
Yeah, nice. So, yes, I just told the others how they will be able to ask questions. I think you will do your presentation first, and then they will be able to ask questions here in Zoom, and we also have a possibility to ask questions on our website. So I just introduced Lea to you and to the others, and Lea will ask the questions we will get over the website. So yes. As I said, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk to you about what happens in the educational system in Finland, as I think Finland is a pretty interesting country regarding to education. Here in Germany, it's kind of a Vorbild. I just forgot the right word.
Okay.
You're the country we are looking up to when we talk about education. And so I'm very happy to hear from you something about how education works in Finland, and how maybe you can at the beginning you can say what's your role in Finnish education, and maybe at a later point today we can talk about what you did to school subjects. So
Actually, thank you, Kai. I had, but then I removed it. I had a short slide of my introduction, but luckily I can do it by heart. So, as said, I'm Marjo Kyllönen, and I'm working for the city of Helsinki. I have quite a long history in education sector in terms of leading the change. I was first working. I have been working in kindergarten and in early childhood education centers, and also in primary school. But then, since the beginning of 2000, so that is approximately 20 years ago, I started first as an expert in our education department in Helsinki, and since 2004, I've been in leading position in our education sector. As you may be very well aware, so in Finland, it's the local authorities, public local authorities like cities and counties, who are responsible for the education system and catering or offering educational services to the citizens living in our city. And Helsinki being a capital of Finland, we are also the biggest city in Finland, and we are the biggest educational provider currently in the whole country. We have early childhood education services, pre-primary, primary, secondary, upper secondary, or comprehensive education, as we call it, and vocational education, upper secondary general education, that is kind of high school education. We also provide adult training and so-called folk schools or this kind of community learning, community services. So in our education department, we have 14,000 professionals, mainly teachers, working, and my task is to lead the development service unit. And I'm not going deeper, but we have all the kind of the quality of education and research and so on, and the curriculum work from early childhood up to the adult training. So that's what I do for work. Then I also have PhD in education, and that's the future school concept, future school and leadership, and that's something that I have been also touring around the world physically, and now the past year virtually to have lectures or discuss people about the future of education and what is the essence of education and how we should be developing our educational system. So that's in a nutshell my history. And now let's start the presentation. And Kai, I kindly ask you to, when I change the first slide, so then I ask you that, is it moving? Because we had some technical problems. Probably Kai already told you about that. But yes,
it works.
Yeah, so I will tell you when I change the slides after a moment. So it's really my pleasure to have this opportunity. I was invited over a year ago to participate in your lecture series of Disruptive Perspective on Education. That's something that I have been constantly thinking of, that how do we develop education and the understanding that it's my talk today is also about, based on the understanding of the importance of education for individuals, for societies, and the whole planet. And today I'm relieving and elaborating the Finnish perspective, what we have been thinking, where we are coming and what are our current situation and how do we look the future. And my presentation consists of 3 parts. We'll first have a short introduction of the Finnish education system, or mainly the value-based, where we have built our current education system and what has made us to become kind of one of the model countries for education, as Kai already mentioned. Then we will go a bit deeper to this thinking of future skills and competencies, and what is our approach to learning, and why, already being a top country for education, so why did we thought, that was in 2015, that we are in the edge of really rethinking our education? What was the understanding behind that? And that will also lead us to these hot titles that Finland is scrapping the subject. That's not the real thing, but I will elaborate what does that mean in practice. How do we think subjects are related to the learning, and so on. And finally, shortly, a kind of example that how to make this change to happen. When having this understanding of what's worth learning and why, so how did we do it? Why there was this hot titles, Finland scrapping the subject. And now, are my slides moving?
Yes, it works.
Great. First, we must understand that education builds up societies, and for any nation to be successful and sustainable in the future, we must understand the nature of education and its role in individuals' life as well in societies. We all know that we can't predict our future, but we can create it. And education is the most powerful tool to do so. So it really makes a difference. How do we educate our children and young ones? And what are the values behind our actions? Because the way we teach our children today, it will reflect the future society we'll meet in 10, 20 years. So first, as education is strongly value-based and the results are strongly value-based, so let's first have a glance to Finnish education system and its values. I could even say the success story of Finnish education was created more than 40 years ago. And it was built behind a great vision of equality and equity to promote social cohesion and well-being in society. There were people, wise men and women, who understood that for Finland to be successful in the future, we can't lose any potential we are having among our young ones. And those days, we have a very diverse education system, and it was a lot of depending on the parents and families' background and history, which path the young one took, and in very early ages, in very early years of their learning path. We have 4 years of elementary education. After that, you choose, there were different options. And if you didn't choose so-called grammar school, you were not, for example, it was very difficult to go to the university. And the great reform that was done there was first that practically after those years, we have also private schools, but they all become public schools. And then we created the so-called comprehensive education from grades 1 to 9. And this, and where all the children from the neighborhood will come to the very same school and be taught by the teachers, same teachers, irrespective of the children's background and families' ability to support them. And there was a great discussions and big discussions and girls that this will kind of, this won't work. And people were afraid that we are ruining all our education system and what will happen to Finland after this type of thing, that all the kids with the various background will be in the same classroom. But as we all know, it was a success story. Our teachers needed to learn how to teach children with the different backgrounds, with the different abilities, and the families' different abilities to support their kids. But we did succeed, and the teachers did learn how to support each and everyone's individual learner. Of course, there are trials that didn't succeed, but at the end, Finland became top country in OECD, for example, in OECD measurements when it comes to the education and 15 years old competencies. But what was good in the past, it's not helping us to create the future. And the traditional school and its practices, actually, they were designed for the needs of totally different society that we are currently living. They were designed for the needs of industrial era, for the time of mass production, specific professions, and quite predictable world. So in that concept, repetition, obeying the set formula, pressing the button at the same time, at the same rate, concentrate on your own work, do not mess with the others. These were really relevant competencies for assembly line work. But as we all know, this word does not exist anymore. We all, I assume, share the experience that we are living in the era of accelerating change. Digitalization has changed our everyday life and practices. Just this is an example of it. Our environment, working places, classes are becoming more diverse, and our world has become more unpredictable, and the change is exponential. COVID-19 pandemic has shown it in a very concrete way. It has shown how the local crisis can easily become global. And this last year has been exceptional for us all globally. Something that majority of us could not even have imagined to happen, it happened. Our everyday routines like going to work, school, shopping have unexpectedly disrupted. I will reflect this a bit more in bit more detail later on in my talk. So, but let's first have a short glance how learning in general has already changed. John Hagel said that industrial era was about scaling efficiency. but age of smart automation is about scaling learning. This makes us all lifelong learners and emphasize the importance of learning, not only in educational institutions, but at workplaces and in society generally. And this is quite evident, I assume we all think. But sometimes when I look around and discuss with different stakeholders, I wonder, thinking of the basic education, are we fully aware of this? And is the shift seen in our educational practices and processes globally? If we look how our labor market has changed and think what is the impact of this to our learners, the children that are now at the primary school will be active members of society and labor market 27 to 28. And our task as educators and societies is to prepare our children and young ones for the future, provide them with the competencies needed in the future society and labor market. So that's why we need to have at least a rough picture and understanding how the environment in labor market has changed, businesses, corporations, organizations. When you look at this change, how does it affect the competencies required in this new changed working environment? From top-down hierarchies to networks and relationships. From competing for market shares to creating new markets. Function-based work in silos. From that to project-based teamwork. And 30 years in one career. From that scenario to plus 10 careers by the age of 40. And one very fundamental change today that has a huge impact in education is how technology has revolutionized the concept of knowledge. If you look at this picture, so some things may look alike, but they are not. These two learners are carrying almost a similar device, at least how it looks like. But the learning concept is totally different. In the beginning, on the left side hand picture, in the beginning of 1800s, learners' tasks was to copy what the teacher taught and try to remember it by heart. The teacher was kind of a gatekeeper of information, and she or he had in her hands the holy grail of knowledge. Looking at the 2020s learner, the device may look alike, but the concept is totally flipped. This device is a gateway to unlimited sources of information, and we get lost if we try to implement the pedagogy of Blackboard and Schock to the 2020 learner. Beyond any doubt, our environment has changed, but how about our school education system, school classroom setting? 1800, look at these pictures, 1800. 1940, that was when my grandmother, when my mother went to school. Or 1966, that's when I went to school. Actually, I'm sitting on the first row, the girl on the left side hand. And 20XX. Do our school classrooms look like this today? That was the pictures 2015 in one of our schools when we started to discuss this. What does it tell about our education system, our thinking, what's worth learning and how? And actually, this all made us to ask ourselves, what's the future of education? Why do we need a place called school? Sometimes I strongly feel that we are captives of our own school memories and history. We are so pleased when we see the setting as it was when we were at schools. But to success and sustain in the future, we must rethink the role of our education system and ask ourselves, what would the school look like if it were to be invented today from scratches? And the other crucial question is, what are the competencies needed in the future? The past year and more has really made me to think how to prepare our children not only to adapt or cope with unexpected, but more how to be innovative and brave to find new solutions. We need to take time and reflect, what are the core competencies for the future? How to build resilience for the present and the future? And here my core question is, do we teach our children only to adapt? Or do we teach them to shape our future for well-being and sustainability of all? And in this picture, social and emotional well-being plays greater role than ever in building up sustainability and success of and for our societies. If we want to promote well-learning, we must think of how to promote well-being and agency and go-agency of our children and young ones. And actually, in our future school concept here in Finland and in Helsinki, we emphasize the importance of pupils' agency and go-agency and how to become a responsible member of society. Our children and young ones must have a real experience of being subjects of their life and active members of the society together. And this type of genuine experience of participation, that is agency, brings up sense of belonging and motivation, understanding that you have the ownership over your life and your actions make a difference to you and to your neighborhoods. And that is also the very best way to prevent polarization and exclusion from the society. In the future, the holistic skills and competencies become more and more important. Actually, skills are the ability and capacity to carry out processes and being able to use one knowledge in a responsible way to achieve a goal. Our learners need to learn how to utilize in a holistic way knowledge, skills, attitudes, values to meet the complex demands of our environment. And as said, in this skill competencies and skills setting, we emphasize the importance of social and emotional skills. They play greater role than ever in building up sustainable and success of our society, and of course for the individuals. And these skills are not only for building up the society, but the social and emotional skills are mentioned again and again on the top 10 list of future labor market skills by the CEOs of corporations and big businesses. And in the future, the holistic skills and competencies become more and more important. And here you can see on top of this social emotional skills that is kind of overlapping this all. And here you can see one approach how to define holistic skills and competencies for the future. I'm not going to go through all of this just picking up some. For example, creativity is often mentioned as one of the core future competence. Innovations, design thinking is needed in a world where we meet wicked problems that can't be solved by using the traditional approaches of one science or subjects. And what is needed is will and ability to act for the sustainability and well-being of our globe. An ability to shape your environment and to be part of the community. And this brings us to a very, very core and crucial competence of the future, so-called transformative competence. Transformative competence is defined in an OECD framework, being an ability to shape a world where well-being and sustainability for themselves, for the others, and for the planet is achievable. And the transformative competence, it's related and it's formed with these three areas: an ability to create new value, take responsibility, ability to take responsibility, and ability to reconcile tensions and dilemmas. And if we go back to this one, so you can see that there are these, for example, to reconcile dilemmas and tensions, it requires empathy. There's responsibility, open-mindedness, engagement, anticipation, courage. These all are crucial skills for the future. So if we agree with this, if we have the kind of understanding that these are much more important than traditional way of repeating what is in the textbook and repeating things by heart. So we have to create a holistic understanding from different approaches. So how can we put this into practice? And what did we do in Finland, and what are we doing today? First, we asked ourselves, life is not split into subjects, so why is it learning? And we came to a conclusion that it shouldn't. And then we started to rethink what type of learning and teaching is bringing us or leading us to the objectives and the competencies we found that are crucial for the young ones. And we are currently here. I must say to you that we have not kind of scratched the subjects from our curriculum. They are there. They are essential. You need to have the basic understanding of different subjects and sciences, the basic knowledge and knowledge construction. But that is not sufficient. They are the kind of base line for the learning construction. We need cross-disciplinary thinking. We need different type of knowledges to handle and to meet the problems and challenges and solve the problems and challenges of today and tomorrow. So in phenomenon-based learning, we are really tackling the problem that how to promote future skills, how to have a cohesive and holistic approach to the learning. And this phenomenon-based learning, it really promotes cross-disciplinary flexible thinking that is crucial when we solve wicked problems of today and tomorrow. And well, we are facing one wicked problem, and we know that climate change is another one, and so on and so on. So we know that they are here already, and we need to do. We need to provide our kids with the different competencies. So in phenomenon-based learning, it's about collaboration, doing things together, not individually. It's about shared expertise. It's problem solving. It's transdisciplinary, as said already, and it's very student-led approach. Holistic in this framework means that the phenomena are studied as a complete entities instead of splitting them into different subjects in their real context, and the information and skills related to them are studied by crossing the boundaries of between subjects, as I already mentioned. Authentic here means that pupils learn to use authentic tools and environments when they are doing their research and when they are solving the problems together. Contextual, it means that they are using the authentic tools and environment. It's something that is also related to their everyday experience. So they are studying things that they are interested in, and they learn how the learning at school is related, or they get the experience how the learning at school is related to their everyday life experiences, and how they can utilize the competencies that they learn at schools to the real life situations. And that is very motivating, and that promotes deep learning. And then it's very student-led or student-centered approach. We emphasize the agency of individuals and co-agency, as said, doing things together. And the pupils, they have a very active role from the beginning up to the end of the whole learning process. They start with the planning, and then they also are actively evaluating and assessing the whole process, their own performance and their mates, and also giving feedback to the teachers. And this is how we have combined the traditional subjects and the objective of the subjects to this type of holistic entities, that where our students are really learning more deeply and widely and in a holistic way the future competencies. And in this concept, we understand also that learning can't be captured inside a school building or classroom.
Oh yeah, lamb free, so why can I rinse my balls in the Burger King soda dispenser?
Oh, there was some nice music. Okay, let's continue. So we consider the whole city as a learning space and place for our learners. And actually, this is also set in our city strategy. So that means practically that all the stakeholders and the other departments are involved in developing the city for the learning platform for our kids and young ones and adults for their learning. And technology is a natural and ubiquitous part of our learning environment. Technology is never a driver, but it can accelerate the learning process. And actually the picture you see here, they are from the real life experience when it was before COVID, when our kids were outside learning things together. This type of change, or this type of approach, it really requires a holistic and systemic change. As I said, we were thinking that if school were to be invented today from scratch, so what should we do? And also when leading the change, we have to have we have to promote systemic change. And leadership in this picture, it really plays a crucial role. in a complex world, and this is not only for the school and education, but in the complex world, no one can lead alone if we want to sustain and prosper. The time of so-called lonely riders is over. It has been over for decades. So we need leaders who empower the whole community. And that means that it's an ability to build up kind of your tribe, your people that you're working with. Valuation of every member of the organization to understand that the best results are achieved when people have a real experience and participation, agency, and also real experience of belonging to the society. So for the leaders, this is not, must remember that this is not achieved by telling people to do things. It's more like calling them for collaboration and co-creation. But not even a best leader can succeed if the organizational culture is resisting. So in practice, that means that everyone is responsible of our success and must be committed to work for it. And our organization culture, it forms from how do we act, collaborate, how we value each other, and to our understanding, the crucial thing here is trust. It has to be built on trust. And also to achieve well-learning and well-being, our physical and virtual environment must reflect and support our pedagogy and pedagogical and educational goals. Just to illustrate this a bit, so if you're looking at these two pictures, there's a traditional school setting. So what type of interaction does it promote? And when we want to promote collaboration, interaction in between the pupils, so we also have to think of our physical environment. How does it support? What type of learning or actions does it promote? And we also need this type of, to do this change, so we also need this type of ability to ask us, what if? And also we need guts and courage to do the actions after we have asked ourselves, what if? In this picture, I hope that you can see it properly. On the left side hand, there are horses and a carriage. And then on the right hand, there is the Ford, the very first car. We all know that Henry Ford invented a car. The problem that he was tackling and what the people were tackling was how to get faster from place A to B. And the obvious solution to that problem or challenge would have been to help the horses to grow their muscles in order to run faster, to give them better food. But Henry Ford didn't do that. He did something else. He invented a car. And people were actually very horrified. Even the doctors said that the speed of the car, it was 10 kilometers an hour those days, could damage human brains. And my question for the education today is, are we brave enough to find new solutions to invent a car instead of growing muscles to the horses? Do we have courage to build up a sustainable future together? Because the future starts today and our children are our future. Thank you.
Yes.
And now it's time for discussions and questions.
Oh, thank you very much. I just need to restart my video. Yes, thank you very, very much for your words and your presentation. I think it's very, very interesting what you're telling us about how you think about education in Finland and how you how you do it. So and I have a lot of questions, but I'm pretty sure all the others have too. Some funny people in here. I think it's funny to is to play some music. Yes, and so my first question is, when we talk about education in Germany, I think we are at a whole different point here. So when we talk, so the things you told us, you just told us, are things I would say that some people in Germany sees all the time in the last 20, 30, maybe 50 years. But so I think there's so much people that are against change in the German system. And my first question is has Finland a different society, or what did you do to let people believe that change can be a good thing?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Thank you.
First, before I answer, so what do you think, Kai? Shall we stop sharing the slideshow or?
I know if you want to show.
Oh, okay. Let it be there. Let it be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So yes, I think I can stop sharing it in Zoom. So reshare it if we need it.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So that of course societies are different. We have different history. We have a different kind of memory as societies. German is much more older and richer in history than Finland. Compared to you, we are quite a newborn country, only a bit more than 100 years old. But the nature of people, I think, in the end, it's similar. And change is scary. And people are usually resisting things that they feel that are scary. And as I very lightly touch in my presentation, that I think that too often, or that is kind of my understanding when I have been meeting people from different parts of the world. So we are so captured, we are kind of captives of our memories, of our narrative that how the school is functioning. Actually, the school, at least I haven't found a similar institution. The school is the institution that all the people working in the school, all the parents taking their kids to school, we all are products of the traditional education. So we have kind of a written memory or narrative in our mind how the school should function. And we have this straight rows and be quiet and remember by heart. And for some reason, we do not think when we enter the school. So we kind of go back to some history, to our own history. And we think this is totally okay. And then when someone said that, okay, changed and the school is not functioning well, or the school is not bringing us to the future, then you ask why. I'm very comfortable with that. When I went to school, that was very good. Teacher put me to remember things by heart, and well, here I am, a CEO or something like that. And that's one reason that it's not easy to change the school. If I assume that no one of us would like to go to a doctor who is using the very same means and medicines and practices that they had like 100 years ago. But with the school, we are very pleased, as you saw in the picture. So that's one thing that when you start to do the change, so be prepared that people will resist. When we started the first major reform there in more than 40 years ago, people were horrified. They were angry. They were fighting. Some people were fighting. And then the people who understand that this is the way where we should go, they had a very, very good strategy. You can't copy paste it to German or any country, but you can think of that where to start the change, where you have less resistance, and what is the first step. And what Finland did was that they started up north because there were fewer people less private schools, and then they gradually came down. So the renewal start from North Lapland. They were the smallest resistant, and they learned when they were doing the change that what is working and what is not. And then when they entered in 1972 or so to Helsinki, where we had the capital area, the biggest resistant, then already the school concept had kind of developed, and also people have learned that this is functioning. So every change starts with the first step, and we have to have forerunners for the change. And when your tribe, your group becomes big enough, so then the change start to happen also at this kind of larger level. This very same thing happened when we changed this approach of more holistic approaches and this type of phenomenon-based learning. So there were enough people around in our country, and there were enough people who were brave enough to raise their voice and say that this school is not functioning. We have a school that was created for some other purposes than what our kids are meeting today. And there were also teachers who noticed that the tools they are using, they are not helping the kids learn or to be motivated at school. So then they started to discuss, and then we started to discuss together. But you need always those forerunners and strategy, how to implement it.
I think this is very interesting, because I think there are some of these forerunners here in Germany, but so we had some of them in our lecture series here, and there are a lot more of them. But I think there are two problems. The first problem is that we have structures, and these structures are so old and so crystallized, and they're not able to move anyhow. So I think this is one problem, and the other problem, and this is a thing I would like to add a question to, is like these people, these forerunners, are most of the time not in charge. So there are people like maybe they are teachers, they are a university teacher, they are maybe students, something like this, but most of them are not in charge. So is this also a structural thing in Finland, that you put more younger people, for example, in charge? I just saw you recently, a few years ago, had the youngest president. I think she was 34, right? So
the prime minister.
Yeah, prime minister.
Yeah, she's still.
Yeah,
in
I
her
think she was 34 or something like this, and your whole government seems to be very young and very female. So is this also maybe a structural thing in Finland, that it's easier for these change makers to get in charge?
Yeah, probably yes. I'm not that deeply. I don't have that deep understanding of the differences in between this German and Finland, but I assume that probably it is in our structures, and also that that you need someone in the leading position that have this understanding, and that what happened to us, and I have examples that the start can be very tiny, and it can end up to the legislation to change the laws, but you can't do it alone. So you need people who start to think not only kind of what I saw in that triangle, that you need a holistic approach. So you need to think that being in this situation, so what is our leadership? What type of changes do we need in our leadership, in our culture, in our environment? And then you start to plan this type of holistic change, where you take different perspective, in not only to try to correct one corner, but try to rethink that what should our education look like as we were thinking, if it were to invent it from scratch. And sometimes the kind of the hardest part is to have an impact to the governmental level if you don't have anyone kind of who is speaking for you. But you can start from very small and then start to model the new way of doing things. I know that it's not easy because then, for example, after elementary education, what I learned from you, Kai, that your university is unique, that you don't, your enrollment is different to the other universities, but you need this type of examples that this can work and the quality can be better and we can achieve better results. It can also start from very small. I have some nice examples also for that. But then, of course, at some point when it becomes kind of city strategy or national strategy, so then you need those people who can influence the decision makers. And I think it was easier 40 years ago. We didn't have social media. Yes. Because the one thing that you have to also learn how to deal with the social media, because as I said, people are kind of they are captures of their own narrative of how schools should be functioning, and without questions, that really something that is for the future of nations. Then I will close here. Also, one thing what I have noticed that this type of thinking, it's all over the world. So it must, I'm optimistic that it must make the change at some point, that there are so many private providers and also public decision makers, ministries who have this idea that this is not sufficient. We are not going to the right direction. But first, you can't force this type of thing. People have to understand. You have to, maybe the best way is to start discussions to ask, why are we doing this? Why do we need to change?
Yes, I think our university was, during their founding phase, it was their goal to be that example, to be an example at the beginning how to do better education in health system, how to become a better doctor. So maybe these examples are needed. I think Lea wants to say something.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for your interesting presentation. I guess there's a question from Max and his friends.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your talk. And one question we got was, the concept it sounds really great, but can you maybe give us some examples? Which phenomenons are at which grade and so on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I was really taking and putting aside when constructing my presentation, that I was thinking, how deep should I go? But yes, I can give you several examples. First, this phenomenon-based learning, it's implemented for all the ages. So actually, we started from the early childhood education, and they, of course, in the early childhood education, the approach is very holistic, but what they learn there is to use different tools to make research and to solve problems, things that they see around them. And in our early childhood education, they have chosen the phenomena of culture. So children will pick some type of thing from the culture. We have this kind of, we call it culture path. So they will pick some some area from there, and then they start to study it with the help, of course, guidance of the teachers. Then in primary school, and secondary, like that is basic education. Every year group they can work with together with their classmates, or there can be age mixed groups. So it depends on the school how they want to design it. And also in our upper secondary education, we are just implementing a new curriculum the coming fall, and upper secondary general education, that is high school. So we have the new curriculum is totally this kind of, it emphasizes this kind of holistic transversal skills, and there are holistic topics like carbon neutral Helsinki, for example, can be. Then they study what is the carbon neutrality, and what is how do they set their own questions, what they want to know about that. But for example, climate change is a very typical of that. It can be love, it can be Europe, it can be one primary school class, they were I think 10, 11 years old, so they wanted to study a phenomenon called smartphone, and they used mathematics when they were doing some statistics. They were still mother tongue and literature lesson skills. They trained it when they make this kind of analysis, how the text message has changed our way of communicating, and so on and so on. So it can be anything you are interested in, but these are, for example, and then we have, you might be very familiar with the makerspace approach, and we have also kind of combined in this phenomenon-based learning this type of what I said in my presentation about the ability not only to adapt but to shape your environment. So we have a kind of examples for example for sustainable development, not only the environmental but also social and economical development. And then you are studying, for example, like food and your carbon track on food, and what that can be one, for example, one example. And also we are emphasizing a lot this innovative and creative ability competence. So just to give you an example, and then I will close here, from one school that are emphasizing, in every school we have technology, but they have this kind of emphasis of technology and creativity and innovation. So they were, I think, 8th graders, 7th graders, that is 14, 15 years old students that I met, and they had kind of thought of a problem that is very much related to their own life, and that's one aspect of phenomenon-based learning. And one group had kind of formulated their challenge, the problem they want to tackle is that in Finland during the winter time it's really cold. It can be really cold and windy, and to be outside you really need warm clothes and also a warm hat. But then on the other hand, when you exercise, when you do things with you go around, so you may start sweating when your body temperature is going up. So there's a problem that sometimes you need a very thick and warm hat, but sometimes it's too warm and then you start sweating. So they had this problem, and then they started to solve it, and they came up with the invention of a hat that is, don't ask me what the technology, but there were some sensors inside it, and it was measuring the wind and the coldness of their outside temperature and weather, and then it also measured the heat of your head, the body temperature, and then it balanced it was warming your head. It has kind of heating system, but then it balanced that the the hat never became too hot, and if you were hot, your head if you almost started to sweat, so then it turned off, and there was some kind of other things that helped you to use the hat, and it kept you warm, but you never started to sweat. So that's one example of phenomena and also the solution.
Right. There's also a question from Noah.
So thank you, Mai, for your talk. I have one question. I've grown up in a school where we partly had like hourly based, like open education systems where I could learn whatever I want. And I really wasn't motivated at all. I didn't learn anything. I just like sat around, did nothing. And now I see the same phenomenon with my students around me in university, where we have an open education system, and people don't find the topics which they're interested in right away. So they get frustrated, and also there's Instagram, Facebook, and so on. So they really like get into this mode of frustration and not doing anything, not searching for topics which they're interested in. How can I give, as a team member or coach or teacher, whatever, give impulses and activate and motivate this environment?
Oh, now I wish that I had included 2 slides to my presentation, because that's a real problem, what you are now facing. And we have also thought of it, because the kind of the worst scenario is that you have this type of phenomenon-based learning session, but then the students do not have the capability of really studying something. So first, we have created this kind of tools for how to build up a phenomenon-based learning session, so that we are scaffolding the learning, and the role of the teacher is to scaffold the learning. And some students, and I go first to the choosing the topics. So it's always led by the teacher, and the discussions that what are the interests. Sometimes in some, depending on the school, so they might even have this type of general topic, for example, this carbon neutral Helsinki that is in our high schools, in every high school. And then when you start to build the phenomenon-based learning for learning sessions or the period, so then the teacher is helping the students to find out a topic or the questions that they want to solve, or the problems they want to tackle with, and we have created cards for the students and for the teachers. And in these cards, they are this kind of pedagogical questions that are helping the teacher to guide the students and the students to find their way. So it's structured. So it's not structured in the way that we have a textbook where you're taking one page and another page and trying to remember, but the learning process must be very well scaffolded by the teacher, and also it requires a good understanding and knowledge of the students' ability. Some students really need very tight scaffolds. You almost lead them step by step. Some just you push them, or you put them on the scaffold, and they go by their own. And this is something that our teachers has also said, that in this type of student-led approach, so it's easier for the teacher to give individual guidance and support to those students that need it more. And then on the other hand, those that don't need, so you are not pushing something that the student already know, so you are not wasting their time in learning. And I can send the link for this phenomenon-based learning cards, because they are available for free in English as well. So you can use this, because that was exactly what our teachers said. That, well, what to do, how to do. if I stand there in the corner, so how do I know that they are learning? No, it's a very active process for the teacher, and also that is what we have understood, that when we are doing the change, it's not sufficient that we only say, okay, you must do this ABCD. We have to give practical tools to the teacher. So these phenomenon-based cards are one. We also have other paths, like we have the STEAMs, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics path that is very concrete. And it's very concrete in the way that it gives the teacher the tools how to make the flip happen, that the student is in the active role. And also it's the responsibility of the teacher that you follow the curriculum. You have to see what the students have learned, what objectives they have gained, and then assure that there won't be any kind of black spots in their understanding and learning process. The Finnish curriculum, the objectives and contents are very process-based, so it's easy because we are not telling what to learn, but how to learn, and that's the shift also that happened in our curriculum. But I will, after this session, I will send you, Kai, the link, and you can share it to all. It's something that our gift to the world.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add?
No, thank you very much.
So maybe before we come to Michael, I would like to add a question. So the stuff you are telling us shows that you have a very special view on children, on maybe teenagers. So you're very found, like, for example, I found that you also, if you're a student in a school and so you just call your teacher informally, right? So you're so maybe they would call you Marjo, or maybe whatever your forename is. So it seems like yes, you're very kind to your students. And my question would be, how is your view, not your in person, but maybe your of the Finnish system? How is your view on on children and how they develop? Because it seems like here in Germany, for example, my experience is, I know that there are some special schools who are different, but my experience is that in our schools we have a very large distance between teachers and students, and yes, you always have this formal addressing to the teachers, and you don't have to be too personal because that wouldn't be good for education. But how would you say would the Finnish system look onto children and students?
The child and the children and the students, they are in the center. And yes, that's true. And that's something that I have also heard from several visitors all around the world before COVID, when they came to our classrooms. So they said that what they notice is that there's a very warm and close interaction and connections in between the teacher and the students and the pupils. And that is not because they can call their teacher with the first name, because the close and warm connection can be created even if you have a more formal addressing. It's just the Finnish society that even we have a president, a former president, she didn't want to be called by her surname, so we called her President Tarja. Tarja was her first name. And so this is something that is in our culture, but you can kind of have the very same thing irrespective how you call, how you address your teachers. And there's a profound respect on children, and also understanding that, and that was in my very first or second slide, that we have to promote equality and equity and that means that every child must be treated by respect, warmth, and closeness. And also you saw several of my slides, and I also talk about the social and emotional well-being. It's very much embedded in our education system and thinking and values that there is no well-learning without well-being. That's what we are saying often. There's no well-learning without well-being. And well-being and the social and emotional skills can grow only in the atmosphere where the pupils, the young ones, they feel that they are respected. There's a warmth in the relationships, and their initiatives, their thoughts, their feelings are taken seriously. So, and that was also kind of one of the things that the people, when we changed the whole education system, was that we saw, and we still see, that there are families that the parenthood is quite lost. And what we are constantly thinking of is that this child must have the very same opportunity than the child who comes from the family who can support it, him or her. And the feelings and our social security is utmost important, also for the academics. And you know that Finland, we have the shortest school days in the whole OECD. And we give less homework to our kids, but we want them to feel comfortable, accepted, respected. And that doesn't mean that the adult doesn't have the authority, of course. But to our experience, if a child or the pupil feels that they are part of the class or school community, they are respected, they are heard, someone cares for them. So there is no problem with the disciplinary things in the classroom. You can feel relaxed because you don't want to disturb something that someone who values you, and you get the feedback, the evaluation. But yes, that's true.
Seems pretty easy. Just because you just said it, how long is a school day in Finland?
It depends on the grade that you are attending, but the first and second graders, they are at school 21, 22 hours a week, and that means that it's 4 hours a day, or some day it's 5 hours. After that, we have arranged afternoon activities, but it's play and doing things. It's not school. And then the older you get, the longer the days are. But for the 9th graders, that is the last grade of basic education, so 30 to 32 hours a week. So it's 6 or 7 hours a day. And we have recess. We have for every lesson, like one lesson is 1 hour long. So you can teach 45 minutes and then you have to have 50 minutes recess there, break. You can combine classes, but you have to take care that there is enough recess time during the school day. Because again, we believe, and that's also by not only our belief, but also by research, we know that when you are relaxed, you learn best.
Okay, Michael, I think you've got a question.
Yes, thank you very much. Marjo, I'm very, very pleased with your talk. I work in higher education, and in 2015, colleagues and I traveled to Jyväskylä to spend 3 days with a higher education program there called Team Academia, developed by Johannes Partanen. And many of the elements that you just described from your school system, we found in this bachelor program. So the importance of social relationships in the study program. The principle that you're not told what to study, but rather how.
Yeah.
And we were mesmerized. I mean, we never seen anything alike anywhere. And after these 3 days, my colleagues and I already still at the airport of Tampere, we decided we want the same at home. So we were the first and so far the only ones in Germany who imported the team academy model, and which we started in 2018. And I occasionally get invited to talk about it, and other university representatives, they're completely shocked. This gets accredited. This you call higher education. This you call education. So this is not university. This is so different. But at the same time, they can't believe that something like this gets approved in a rigid system like Germany. So I have 2, maybe 3 points. The first point, I think, is that our education system gives us a lot more flexibility than we believe we have. You spoke earlier about the political level, yeah. But we made this very different program happen within the existing framework, higher education framework. Yeah. So very often there is no need for political change. Sometimes all you need to do is get started. Yeah, and you find out, hey, it's actually possible. The second thing is, I wonder, Germans are traditionally engineers. That's the mental mindset. And I wonder, whether we try to solve stuff technically where you look for social innovations as solutions. Not just in education. There's another very well-known example for this. In the work against or with homeless people, the Finnish didn't invent it, but are very successfully implementing the housing first policy in Finland. Have basically reduced homelessness to zero. And again, in Germany, we're like 10 years behind. The Team Academy model, we were 25 years behind. Is this a characteristic thing that you look for social solutions rather than technical solutions?
Well, you described it very nicely, and I share the very same experience that sometimes it's not the legislation and a political kind of will that prevents us to make the change. It's more like in between our 2 ears that we think that we can't do it. And then when you start to think, there's nothing that limits us. So that's something that I've been through several things in my career. If you say so, I don't know German, your type of solving problems, that is it more like a technical or kind of engineering things, but you are certainly correct there that Finnish way of thinking is the social aspect and how to make social innovation, and it's as I said, that trust is important. So trust is so deeply embedded in our culture, in our national culture, that we don't even notice it. But then I have heard people coming to Finland moved from other European countries, and they are kind of blown up that is this really happening every day, that you trust that there's a so thick trust in our cultural kind of grounds or cultural heritage, that everything what we do is kind of based on trust and trust and trust. And also then there's this kind of big or great respect to humanity and to kind of probably being a tiny country, we have been reigned by Russians and by Sweden. So we were kind of under the giant Goliath and we were tiny David. So maybe that has also kind of affected our thinking that we want everyone's best. So we want to make this type of social, to look it from the social perspective and how for example, the importance of social relationship, really we underline that or highlight that. And actually now what we have learned from the COVID situation and that, for example, our upper secondaries were quite long remote learning only. So our first concern is the social well-being and social connectiveness, that because there have been a lack of that, so we can already see how our young ones are reacting, and we are very concerned of their social and psychological well-being. And we of course we also know that it will kind of have an impact to the academics, but we want to promote well-being, and that's, yeah, probably you are very correct in that perspective if you say so, that your approach is different.
Thank you. There are some questions in our chat. So first of all, how does society value the profession of teachers?
Oh, here I'm very lucky, very high. Teachers' profession is highly respected in every social layer, and also trusted, and specifically when it comes to the primary school teachers, that is class teachers. So education faculty is one of the most difficult faculty to get in, because we don't get everyone in who applies. There's tests and rankings based on your marks. So very highly respected. It's not that highly paid, but teachers are respected. I have a very nice memory of my own when I graduated to become a teacher. So one of my cousins, I met my cousin and her children, and then my cousin said to her children, "Now look at Marjo. She's now a teacher, so she knows everything, and you must behave when she's around."
All right. So at what time school starts in the morning, and how big are classes, and how is the childcare ratio?
The school day starts, it varies depending on your timetable. So, but majority of the children go to school around 8, or then 8 or 9, sometimes even 10, but that's for the small kids, and because the older you are, so the longer days you have. But 8 and 9 are very common times to start the school, but we don't have kind of a joint or same time for starting the school. The class size, it's also depending on the subject you are teaching, but an average class size is a bit under 20, something between 17, 18, and you can have a bigger class, and then you can divide it into smaller ones. We also have this kind of co-teaching model, that there may be 2 teachers teaching the very same class, but the rate in between one teacher and the student is somewhere there 15 to 18. Okay. And childcare is very well organized in Finland. Every child up to the age of 7 are entitled to public childcare whilst the parents are at work. And then when you go to the school, so we have organized afternoon activities. There are trained personnel for the kids, and we guarantee this kind of afternoon activity for all the first and second graders. After that, we have youth houses. After that age, there are youth houses, and then we also have playgrounds with the trained personnel who take care of the school kids after school. We provide free lunch, so there's no need for going for lunch during the school day, or they don't bring their own lunch boxes with them. And also in the afternoon activities, they have a snack there.
Okay, thank you very much. We got also some questions on our website. So first of all, do you think we in Germany should start with small villages and little systems to change the big system?
That's one way to start this change. And to my experience, it's easier. Of course, if there are leaders who have this vision, so it's easy also to start from the very big picture, but every change journey start with the first step, and it's usually easier to start with to have several small starts instead of trying to have a big national-wide start.
And the next one is interactable play still an important subject in schools in Finland?
Sorry, which is it?
Is interactable play still an important subject in schools in Finland?
Well, interactive play or
yes, interactive. The question.
Interactive play. Oh yes, if I got it correctly, so we don't have a subject. We have PE, physical education, of course. We don't have a subject that is called play, but we do believe that learning through playing, even for their older ones. And of course, there's a lot of things that we do at schools that are not on the certain subject. And for example, how to strengthen the social cohesion in the classroom, and there we know that play is a very effective tool to use, not only in the kindergarten or early childhood education, but even with the adults. And gamification when it comes to the virtual world and digital solutions. So we have a lot of also research-based understanding, for example, the high school students, that gamification is a very effective way of learning things, and it really sometimes those that have had problems with the more traditional way of learning, they kind of get in and get good results when you have the tools for when you're using gamification in an interactive gamification in learning. I hope that I answered the right question.
There's also a question from Max and his friends again.
Yes, so my question is, how do you implement learning languages in your phenomenon-based learning, or is this like separated? Because here in Germany, you go through the system and have the language regularly in fixed classes. Is it different in your system?
Well, we have language classes, and as I said, that you need to have the basic skills. You can't start to learn cross-disciplinary if you don't know how to read and write. And it's I always say that kind of it's no sense. We could do it so that give letters to the pupils and say, darling, try to construct the language. Some will succeed, some learn to write and read without teaching. But it's like throwing a child who can't swim to the river and see whether it survives or drowns. So always you have to think that what is the thing here to be learned. So that's the very same thing with the language. Of course, we have language lessons, and when we are teaching language, we start from very first grade, that is 7 years old children. So they learn through play and songs and games, and that's the way to learn the language. And then the older they get, of course, you have to learn the grammar, but we are emphasizing the ability of communication, written and oral communication. And then when you have this kind of skills for the foreign language, so in this type of phenomenon-based session or research programs they're doing, so they are encouraged to use resources from different languages. So you can easily have some of your objectives from the language subject integrated or embedded in this phenomenon-based learning. But of course, first you have to have at least the kind of first ABCD of the language. But actually we have examples of how the language learning can be part of the phenomenon-based learning sessions.
Katrin Weiss.
And you know that Finland is a very tiny country. We have less than 6 million people here, and our language is rarely spoken in the other parts of the world if they are not immigrant Finns. So our children, they need to know how to use material from different languages because we don't have all the material available in Finnish. So that's also that it's very natural for our kids to have these language objectives included in the phenomenon-based learning.
I'd like to know, you have told us that the environment is working together with the schools in the cities, the enterprises, the institutes. Can you give us an example for those cooperation with the city?
Yes, so I could give you several, but let's start something that is very easy. Our museums they have, when we introduced this phenomenon-based approach, so our museum and art sector, they really wanted to be in, and also the library. So we started to develop together this type of holistic material, how to, for example, how to develop the some museums to fit the objectives of our curriculum and how the students can go there, and there were guidelines for the teachers. In one museum, they made this kind of digital twin to one part of the city, so the students could go there and make some research on how it has changed during the historical time span. Then we have just also our libraries, and specifically our new library called Oodi, that is more like a learning center than a traditional library. So yes, you can find their books, but the majority of the space is for this new type of doing things, and they have 3D printers and so on. So we also, in one of our projects, so we develop this kind of guidelines and toolbox for teachers, that how they can use this Oodi and its facilities in phenomenon-based learning project. We also have had this type of pop-up schools in that library, so that it was before COVID, obviously, that when Helsinki or Finland has the presidency of EU, so that spring or the late summer, we had pop-up schools in the Oodi library, and the visitors could come and join and see how our students were learning and making the research. We also have, there's one island in Finland, and where we have had biennale, art biennale for several years, and this year we constructed it together with the museum experts, that this biennale it's also, it's a place you have there, or not a museum, but art experts. You have a different type of installations and art pieces there in that island, and there's a pad. And then we developed a game. As I say, gamification is very, very powerful tool. So we created a game with our virtual game using one platform that is very suitable for this type of learning in mobile learning. It's called Seppo.io, and now our school kids, they can go there and they can do some research and play the game and learn why they are playing. We have made a similar place for other environments together with the museum people, and then also as people got so kind of inspired of this type of holistic approach. So people said, okay, we want to be part of that. We want to offer something, and in coming fall we are going to open, and also the enterprises and startups, they said, okay, we'd like to do something with you, and this Seppo.io platform is one example of that. Other examples also, then, just to finalize, so the coming fall we are opening a physical and also a virtual place and space called Helsinki Education Hub, where the entrepreneurs and even bigger corporations and with edtech companies can come and develop and create things together with our students. So it's this kind of co-creative space, and even the big companies, companies have been very interested, not to mention the small ones. So it was kind of an inspiring way, including the music hall and things like that. And to my experience, the other stakeholders actually got the idea sometimes quicker than our teachers, because they already have this approach.
Thank you very much for your answer and your talk.
Thank you.
So here are some questions on our website, and if anybody gets some questions, it's nearly the last possibility now. Do you see problems or things to improve in Finland education system, and what would you criticize?
Of course, we have. How would I put this? We have. I would say that there are challenges that we really need to address quicker than we have. And one is that our environment has become more diverse in terms of cultural diversity, languages diversity, and religion, and yes, ethnic diversity. We used to be very homogeneous, in a way, a very homogeneous country, but for the past 20 years, we are more and more multicultural, and we have done a lot to have this kind of our own approach, how to build up the social cohesion in our society. And this is specifically a challenge for the capital area in Helsinki. Approximately 20-25% of our kids are non-native Finnish speakers currently. And in some part we have succeeded well, but we can also see that, for example, looking at the young ones, of the dropout rate of those that don't find a place after the basic education, so their immigrant background young ones are overrepresented in that group. So we have done a lot, but not sufficiently, and that's something that we are really focusing currently. Also, in terms of this kind of segregation, so the differences in between the best and the poorest performer and in between the pupils have been and still is the shortest in OECD countries, but we can see this kind of a bit accelerating development of polarization that really worries us, that the background of the child is determining more than before the kind of success and future of the child. So we have huge programs currently at the national level and also at the local level, that is City of Helsinki, to tackle this challenge. But it's a wicked problem, and as I said in my presentation, can't be solved by using one approach. So we have and still are currently working on that how do we develop our school culture that I mentioned, how it can be more like even more community approach that it is currently, and how to support every learner that they feel that they are included and they are and how to prevent the exclusion based on the background of the students, whether it's multicultural or low socioeconomic background. So that's what we are tackling currently. Otherwise, in terms of how we have construct at the national level and also at the local level, the objectives for education and how we see the challenges. So I don't have anything to criticize, but definitely we have faults, and we need to look constantly that what's the current situation and what's the future. And I hope and wish that we have in the future, that we have the very same courage and guts to do the right thing and not to listen too much what the social media is saying, that to be like Henry Ford, not to listen what the people want, but listen what we really need and make the decision. And of course, the world is more complex also in that sense, that it's not that easy when everyone has a channel to say something, and usually those that shouts the loudest or louder, they are the one who are heard, not even the big majority. So that's kind of sometimes a bit scary picture even.
Just sorry, Leah, just a
is
question.
going to school in Finland compulsory, or are there any persons learning outside the system? And if so, are many people using this option, or are most of the people happy with your educational system?
Majority, really more than 90%, it's quite near the 100, are going to the school for learning. There is a possibility. It's not compulsory to go to school, but it's compulsory to pass through the basic education. And now also we have prolonged that compulsory, so it's also concerning or covering the first two to 3 years of upper secondary and vocational education, upper secondary, high school and vocational education. So you have this kind of it's compulsory education from the 6 pre-primary up to the 18 years. When you are 18 years, then you are not anymore a minor, so you can decide what you want. But as said, homeschooling is an option. Then the parents must take responsibility of their child's learning, and we are monitoring it. We, as the city, we have the responsibility to monitor and to evaluate whether the child is achieving the objectives and also the child's well-being. We have, I think, 2 or 3 small societies that are acting like schools, but they don't have the permission, because in Finland, to run a school, you have to have the permission from the ministry. You can have you can be a private or a society that runs a school, but that's very rare because you can't collect any fees. So you have to practically obey the very same rules as the public schools, and in a sense, everything is public. But there are a few small communities with some 10, 20 in total, not even 100 pupils, that are taught by adults or teachers, even teachers, but they don't have the permission, so they are under the kind of legislation of homeschooling, and we also go there and monitor the kids' achievements on a yearly basis, but it's very rare in Finland.
Mm-hmm. And there's a last question in our chat. Would you agree that even the Finnish school system only managed to teach students how to survive inside a system which itself did not survive?
I don't know if I got it correctly. That our Finnish system has kind of taught the children how to survive in the school system, but not in the outside world. Was that the question, or?
I may repeat it.
Okay. Is it in this chat?
In the chat,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think the question is if you're teaching. You got it?
Okay. so if the school system only managed to reach students how to survive inside a system, I don't know if I got the idea. So to reach students how to survive inside a system which itself does not survive.
So I think
maybe I did.
Yeah. I think the idea of this question is if so normally in schools you're teaching students to survive inside the educational system, like do this and then you get good grades.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
but the premise here is that this kind of educational system itself will not survive. So the question is, are
yes,
you?
Yes.
Then Huck is sorry. Huck is wants to talk.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So hello. Thank you so much so far for your presentation and your words, and greetings from your end too.
Okay.
So I want to elaborate. So the question is based on the idea that the idea of education is to teach our offspring how to survive on this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like when looking at the Finnish ecological footprint, we are consuming the equivalent of 3-point-something planets.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that even the Finnish school system, as well designed as it is and well thought through as it is, only manages to teach our children how to survive inside a system like that itself does not survive.
Oh yes, so you mean the system of our globe, that it won't survive? Yes, in a way, if I got it now correctly, so that's why, because that's one of our problem is that, okay, we might learn to survive and learn, or let me say it in the other way. For me, this challenge is that if we only teach our kids to survive, that's not sufficient, thinking of the future of globe and all the global crises. So surviving, or as I said, to adapt or to shape, surviving and adapting, it's not sufficient when thinking of the future. And here we have a lot to do. We are on the right track, but we are not there yet, not even in the midway. And that's why I brought up the idea of transformative competence. And that is very beautifully opened in the OECD curriculum Learning Compass 2030, where the head of OECD, Andreas Schleicher, I've heard him talking about this, and I was very kind of touched with that idea that it's not sufficient that we only kind of survive or learn how to adapt. We need this transformative competence if we want to success in the future. And in that way, yes, we have a lot to do. And I would say that this is a global question, that it's not sufficient to survive or adapt. You have to transform.
Thank you.
Huck, I just wanted you to elaborate this a bit. That did I give you or did you got my point, or did I get yours?
I think so. At least I got your point. For me, like my background is actually survival education. I work as a survival instructor, and so to me, the whole topic of survival and education, also outdoor education, they're very linked together. I'm involved in the outdoor education networks, and
yeah.
So to me, like really the crucial part is actually to show lifestyles, even as teachers, that are safe to be copied, and we are lacking role models in this, which I think is really a big thing in itself to recognize.
Yeah. So probably you can send me an email, because we are also not only saying this, but we have some practical tools that I unfortunately can't kind of tell more in this this session, but that's something that we have been thinking of, and also starting to build models for our teachers, how to kind of cross that border, how to go behind that surviving, from surviving to shaping.
Yeah, happily. I will find your email address somewhere and I will contact you.
It's my first name, second name at hel.fi, but you just,
right.
I think you, yeah,
Kiitos.
City of Helsinki you can find there.
Okay, kiitos.
Oh yes, I think we're through for today. So yes, in the chat, someone says maybe it would be interesting for another session. So maybe you will visit us in Witten someday.
I hope so.
Yes, I have one last question. As I said at the beginning, Finland, as I grew up, I was born in 1989, so the first PISA study was, I think, at the year 2000, and I grew up like Finland is always the leader in education. So but nevertheless, even that you're the leader in education, you're still developing. And my last question to you is, are you brave or crazy?
Both. Well, if you think of the nature is renewing itself, it's growing, and it's blooming out of diversity, and also kind of sometimes new solutions. And if we stop growing, if we are not developing the things, so it's kind of death. You have to always think of the future, and you have to reflect. I don't mean that every day you have to reinvent, but you have to be critical and reflective enough what you are doing, the actions, specifically when it comes to education, that is so easy to stuck to the history. Otherwise, we are not, and otherwise we are not shaping our future for the success and sustainability of our kids and societies and the globe.
So yes, thank you for this very inspiring and important words at the end of today's lesson. I'm really, really happy that you've been here, or maybe virtually here with us. Sorry. And you've been answering all our questions. Yes, the persons are applauding in the Zoom session. Yes, so thank you very, very much. I think more about you could be found on YouTube. Like I've seen some TED Talks. So if anyone's interested, what do you think about different topics? I think they will find you. So, and you send me the cards, and I will put it on the website. And so the link on the website, it would be okay for you if I do this?
Yeah, yes, of course. It's something that we've made with the help of ministry money, and we are happy to kind of deliver it to everyone who is interested in. It's a full package, so there's the whole thinking and guidelines and all practical tools for the teachers.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So I will switch to German for saying goodbye. It would be okay for you.
Ja.
Genau. Vielen Dank an alle, die heute mitgemacht haben, auch bei Zoom. Vielen Dank auch an die uns zwischendurch versucht haben, ein bisschen zu stören. Man muss ja auch immer noch mal herausgefordert werden. Das macht auch viel Spaß. Genau. Nächste Woche geht es weiter um 19 Uhr mit einer, wie ich finde, wie alle unsere Sessions natürlich sehr spannend sind, haben wir nächste Woche gleich, wenn ich mich gerade nicht verzählt habe, 5 Gäste zum Thema Freilernen in Deutschland. Also das heißt, wir sprechen nächste Woche mit Marie-Helene, die ist 17 und geht nicht mehr zur Schule, seitdem sie 12 ist. Zusammen mit ihrer Mutter, einem Anwalt und einer anderen Schülerin, die ebenfalls eigentlich nie in der Schule war, deswegen kann man sie eigentlich nicht Schülerin nennen. Das wird es nächste Woche um 19 Uhr geben, am Donnerstag. Ich würde mich sehr freuen, wenn alle wieder dabei sind und fröhlich mitmachen. Ansonsten Vielen Dank an Lea für die Unterstützung heute und immer. Und ich bedanke mich trotzdem bei Charlie, der heute nicht dabei sein konnte, weil wir keine Technik brauchten, der uns aber trotzdem auch die ganze Zeit unterstützt, auch wenn wir hier nicht live sind. Deswegen vielen Dank auch an Charlie. Genau, und ja, vielen Dank an alle, die mitgemacht haben. Ich freue mich sehr und würde sagen, bis nächste Woche.